The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. There are times in our life when we want to give up. We feel without energy, dissatisfied with what we live day by day, unmotivated with our environment. We drown in a glass of water, and even if we have the solution in front of us, we don't want to see it. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma is a book designed to help you break down these barriers. The author wants to help you make those changes that will give your life true purpose. Today we have countless content focused on motivation. Books, motivational phrases, videos, articles, and guides to improve the way we live. We are in the boom of self-help. Regardless of all the information that exists on the subject, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari is one of the best books in the world on personal motivation. This book tells us the story of Julian, a successful and prestigious lawyer who went out of his way for his work. As time passed, and his fame as a brilliant lawyer spread, his quota of work kept increasing. The cases were getting bigger and better, and Julian, who was one of those who never got discouraged, so he continued to force the machine. In his rare quiet moments, he recognized that he was not able to sleep more than 2 hours at a time without waking up feeling guilty that he wasn't working on a case. I soon realized that Julian was consumed with ambition. He needed more prestige, more glory, more money. But living this way was soon going to take its toll on him, as he suffered a heart attack while presenting the Air Atlantic case in court, which led him to stop in intensive care and leave the firm, and to give up the practice of his profession. Going through this experience, Julian decides to sell all his belongings and embark on a journey of self-discovery to India, in search of a way to be happy and a second chance to find fulfillment. The entire book is centered around Julian's return and all the wisdom he learned on the journey. When he returns, he visits his friend and colleague John, and when he sees him he notices that he is sad, upset, and that he can't find any meaning in his life. And he decides to help him so that he, too, can find fulfillment. Julian offers to tell him all the teachings he learned from the monks in Savannah. In this short summary we will share the main ideas of the book. The transformation of Julian Mantle. When Julian introduced himself to John, he had a fresh, youthful countenance. Nothing like how he was a few years ago. How did this person who years ago seemed so old now look so alive? This is how Julian begins to tell him about everything that happened. The heart attack he had suffered had only been a warning of a deeper problem. His career as a lawyer had completely exhausted him, his body was falling apart, and his mind had lost its shine. But more importantly, his work had destroyed his spirit. When the doctor gave him two options: give up his job or his life, Julian saw it as a new opportunity to recover the flame that he had lost. He decides to sell all his belongings and heads to India. Little by little, together with all those landscapes, Julian began to feel alive again. But, although everything was a magical moment, this trip was for more than just a vacation. He was determined to find out who he really was, and the meaning of life for him. The more he searched, the more he heard about some wise monks, who despite their age, conserved their energy and vitality. Listen to your heart. The question you might be asking yourself right now: was it hard for him to leave his entire career and belongings behind? Well, this is the same question that John asked. Julian replied that it was something quite easy, that it seemed natural to get rid of everything material. That when he finally listened to his heart, life became easier. During his journey of self-discovery, Julian got his first teaching after spending 7 months in India. Because he was lucky enough to meet Yogi Krishnan, who had also been a lawyer in his previous life. Tired of living the hectic life of modern New Delhi, he decided to retire, live in extreme simplicity, and dedicated himself to being the caretaker of the village temple. Krishnan realized that his mission was to serve and help others. That it helped him find his soul again. Julian also told her his story, and the life of luxury that he had left behind in order to find himself. The yogi taught him a lesson that every person should keep in mind every day. Everything happens for a reason, every event has a reason. Failure is a great teacher necessary for the expansion of the person. After hearing these words, Julian asks the yogi for help. I Krishnan, to start your path to a life of fulfillment. This is how they begin to talk about the great sages of Savannah. the spiritual student of the sages. After walking for hours, on complicated roads, he finally reached Savannah, which was a green, lush valley, calm, full of serenity and harmony. Julian explained to John that the inhabitants of that neighborhood seemed to have a youthful appearance, and that they kept silent to preserve the peace of the place. The men wore a red robe, they looked healthy, and happy as if the tensions of the outside world had no access to that space full of serenity. While Julian was telling him about his experience, John couldn't stop thinking, how is it that his soul had been rusting with the passage of time? Before, even the simplest things used to fill him with joy. He realized that perhaps the time had come to reinvent his destiny. He was intrigued if Julian's learnings in India could also help raise the quality of his life. After months with the monks, Julian began to be aware of the wealth that slept inside his mind. He told John that the first signs of his personal expansion came after 3 weeks with these sages. Because he was beginning to notice the beauty in common things. Like a sunset, the night full of stars, or a spider web with rain dew. Within a month, applying Savannah's principles and techniques, he began to cultivate a sense of inner peace, which he had never felt in his life. The wisdom of personal change. As Julian continued to reveal more about his transformation, John began to feel a little skeptical about Julian's change. Like this jurist out of Harvard. Being one of the best lawyers in the country. He'd throw in the towel, sell his stuff, and come back a Himalayan prophet. But there was no doubt that the evidence was present, his face looked unlined, he had plenty of energy, and the tranquility that he gave off was something that could not be ignored. Although he wanted with all his might to understand, how is it that this person could change his life so radically? But it all sounded so mysterious to him. Julian showed him with an action what was happening in his mind, which prevented him from understanding all the teachings that he wanted to share with him. He grabbed a cup and filled it to the point that no more water could fit in, and he began to overflow. This rate was John's mind, which was so full of his own ideas that it gave no room for new ideas. Although it is difficult for you to accept it, it is a reality that we all go through. We are so focused on our work, or on the things we think are important, that we limit our view of the world. That day Julian asked John for only one thing. That he will think about the teachings, and he will apply them consciously for a month. Investing this time to work on yourself brings surprising results not only to your life, but also to those around you. Look at it this way, only when you can master the art of loving yourself will you be able to love others. These tips will help you achieve a life of enlightenment. Mystical Fable. 7 Principles of Spiritual Enlightenment. Yogi Raman, the oldest of the Savannah sages, and leader of the group, had been responsible for guiding Julian to the temple to teach them the principles of it, and the practices that their ancestors had transmitted to them through the centuries. But all on the condition that after learning the eternal truths, he would return to his country, and share this wisdom with people who need it. That was how Julian began to open his mind to his traditions, adopting them as his own, respecting his way of life, and even learning some of his habits. He did all this because he fervently wanted to fill his life with all the good things that existed. His actions did not go unnoticed, since after a few months in Savannah, Yogi Raman considered that Julian was ready to listen to the 7 principles of spiritual enlightenment. Through this fable, the yogi would share with him these virtues for a life full of peace, joy, and wealth within you. So he tries to create an image for you of every word you hear next. You are sitting in the middle of a splendid, lush garden. This garden is full of the most spectacular flowers that you have ever seen. The environment is extraordinarily calm and quiet. Savor the sensual delights of this garden. And he thinks you have all the time in the world to enjoy this oasis. Looking around, you see that in the middle of the magic garden, there is an imposing red lighthouse 6 stories high. Suddenly, the silence of the garden is interrupted by a loud screech as the lighthouse door opens. Then a Japanese sumo wrestler appears. It's almost 3 meters and weighs 400 kilos. Advancing indifferently towards the center of the garden. The sumo wrestler is naked, well, actually, he was wearing a wire, pink cable covering the parts of him. When the sumo wrestler starts to move around the garden, he finds a gleaming gold chronograph that someone forgot many years ago. He slips and instantly falls with a thud. The sumo wrestler is left unconscious on the ground, motionless. When he already seems that he has exhaled his last breath, the fighter wakes up. Who knows if moved by the fragrance of some yellow roses that bloom nearby. With new energy, the fighter rises quickly to his feet and looks intuitively to the left of him. What he sees surprises him a lot. Through the bushes at the very edge of the garden, he watches a long, winding road, covered by millions of beautiful diamonds. Something seems to impel the fighter to take that path. And to his credit, he does so. That path leads you down the path of everlasting joy and eternal happiness. At the end of telling this fable, Yogi Raman tells Julian that, although at first he may seem frivolous, and even a little childish, each of the elements of this fable refers to a principle with a deeper meaning. An extraordinary garden. Within the fable, the expansive and exuberant garden symbolizes the mind. This is very simple. If you focus on caring for, nurturing, and cultivating it like a garden, it will flourish beyond your expectations. But if you neglect it, and let the weeds fill your space, you will never be able to achieve peace of mind or internal harmony. The first principle is about controlling your mind and your thoughts, as this determines in many ways how we live. By thinking positive thoughts, you get a happy, positive life. If you handle negative thoughts all the time, we get a sad, negative life. But unfortunately, most people put pesticides in their garden, toxic as they are. Worries, anxieties, regrets, and even fears that end up destroying their inner world. In order for you to live a life of maximum fulfillment, you must be aware that only the most select information enters your mind. You cannot allow any negative thought to enter your mind. Not even a single one. Nurturing our mind, we achieve a more enlightened life. Try to take care of your garden. Change your negative thoughts to positive thoughts. Remove from your mind all worries, longings for the past, and fears. It is essential to be able to let go of all those negative emotions from the past, in order to live a positive present. There is a story in the book that explains this teaching in more detail. It is about a teacher who met Julian in Calcutta named Malika Chand. This teacher was overflowing with kindness, and she was always trying to help others. One day, unfortunately, the school where she worked caught fire. The whole community felt very sad because their children were not going to have a place to study. While the entire community felt sad and despondent, what the teacher saw was an opportunity to give the children a new place instead of the old school they used to have. Driven by the 74-year-old teacher, they gathered resources and strength to build her new school. This is a clear example of the power of a positive outlook. The only difference between Malika and her community is the way they decided to interpret the situation. While the community focused on seeing the negative side of the accident, Malika decided to see it as an opportunity for improvement. This small change made a world of difference. This is the power of changing your negative attitude for positive thoughts. Technique to dominate your mind. There is a technique that the sages of Ceylon have used for more than 4,000 years. This is called the heart of the rose. Julian witnessed the wonderful power of him. Since after practicing it for 21 days, he could feel more energetic and enthusiastic than ever. To practice this technique, all you need is a rose and a quiet place. The process is quite simple. Start by looking at the center of the rose, paying attention to its color, texture, fragrance, and think only of the object in front of you. At first, you may have a hard time keeping all the distracting thoughts quiet. But do not rush, because over time you will see how your mind becomes stronger and more disciplined. For some people, this exercise may seem quite complicated. Either because silence is uncomfortable for them, or because they think they don't have time to look at a flower. But it is these people who say that they do not have time to enjoy their children, or to enjoy the little things in life. Take your time to cherish moments, is what makes a life worth living. The key is to do it every day. After a while, you will see how your mind becomes strong and disciplined. In addition, you will find in the silence a sanctuary of peace. There are no mistakes in life, only lessons. There is no negative experience. Only opportunities that have to be seized. to advance on the path of self-mastery. Robin Sharma, the monk who sold his Ferrari. If you like this video, please subscribe, it's free. It costs you nothing, and it helps me a lot. If you really like this summary, give it a go. I like it. So YouTube will recommend this video to more people. Thank you for subscribing and liking it. Now let's continue. An imposing lighthouse. The second symbol within the fable is the imposing lighthouse, which functions as a reminder of another principle of an enlightened life. The purpose of life is a life with purpose. Enlightened people know what they want to get out of life, emotionally, materially, spiritually, and physically. Clearly define your priorities in every aspect of your life. It plays a role similar to that of the lighthouse, since it gives you orientation when the sea is rough. How many times have you felt that everything you do doesn't make sense, and you don't know which way to go? Savannah's sages did not waste time, since their conscience reminded them that their lives had an objective that they had to fulfill. The way to achieve lasting happiness is to constantly work to achieve your goals, and move in the direction you have set for yourself. This philosophy should be your engine of life, whether at work or in your personal life. Defining your priorities will help you fulfill your dreams and give meaning to all your decisions. In this way, every step you take in the right direction, no matter how small, will be a great advance. Savannah's sages guided their daily activities around their dharma. The purpose of life, no matter how insignificant the activities might be, everything always had a reason. Take some time and think. Where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve? Why do you want to do this with your life? When you know what you want to achieve, or the purpose of your life, the next thing is to make it a reality. 5 steps to realize your dharma. Savannah's sages had created a 5-step method to make your life's purpose a reality. 1. Form a clear image of the result. The mind is very powerful. Seeing yourself in this way creates the desire to achieve it. 2. Put positive pressure on yourself. This type of pressure prevents you from falling into habits that take you away from your result. People often create or do the best things when they find themselves between a rock and a hard place. Use public commitment to commit to the things you have to do. 3. Set a very precise deadline for each goal you have. To give life to a goal, you must set a time. 4. Write down your objectives or goals. Writing down what you want in life is a way of getting to know yourself. 5. The magical rule of 21. It is believed that for a behavior to become a habit, this activity must be repeated for 21 days in a row. We all come into this world with a purpose. Your task is to find out what it is. Visualize what you want to do, and set goals that help you achieve it. This is the best way to know how to achieve your goals. Since it is impossible to hit a target which you cannot see. The secret of success is constancy of purpose. Sumo wrestler. You already saw that the garden represents the mind, that if you know how to take care of it, it can bring you unlimited fruits. You already saw that the lighthouse symbolizes the power of goals and vocation. But what is the sumo wrestler walking out the door about? Sumo wrestling is an important element in the system of the Savannah sages, since it represents a philosophy called Kaizen, which means constant improvement, which is based on the result of small changes that happen over time. As we said before, external success begins with internal success. So if you want to change your outer life, you have to first improve your inner life. This is achieved through the practice of self-improvement and personal expansion. Think. How are you going to run a business if you can't control yourself? How can you do good things if you don't feel good? Change must come from within, so that everything falls into place. This is the importance of finding aspects of your life to improve. Julian decided to address this issue with a practical example. He asked John to do as many push-ups as he could, and not to stop until he couldn't do any more. With 200 pounds of him, the first 15 push-ups were pure agony, but he pushed himself to 50 push-ups, and he gave up because he just couldn't take it anymore. Listening to this, Julian tells him to do 10 more push-ups so he can rest. He did so and he collapsed on the ground. This experience made him understand that, even during push-up number 23, he said that he had reached his limit. But when challenged to continue, his reaction was to do 10 more push-ups. The only limits that exist are the ones you set for yourself. So when you force yourself to get out of your comfort zone and comfort, it's when you explore the unknown and you can unleash your true potential. Are you afraid of speaking in public? Always try to be the one who presents projects in your work. This will help you lose your fear and develop more. Do you want to be more positive? Practice changing your mindset in trigger situations. The next time you don't reach your set goals, don't see it as a negative, but as an opportunity to learn. Would you like to be more punctual? Always schedule your meetings 15 minutes in advance to ensure that you arrive on time. Savannah's sages believe that people grow more when they enter the zone of the unknown. The only limits you can find in life, you have set for yourself. When you decide to step out of your comfort zone, you begin to unleash your true potential. Techniques to achieve the Kaizen philosophy. Some of the techniques you can do to achieve the Kaizen philosophy are: Ritual of solitude. Invest 15 minutes a day to be able to discover the healing power of silence. How many times a day do we go through a situation in which we feel pressured or overwhelmed? Take a break so you can renew yourself. You will see that all the problems you have in your mind disappear, little by little. All this is thanks to self-renewal. Nutrition ritual. A poor diet has a pronounced effect on your life. It consumes your energy both physically and mentally, as it affects your mood and clouds your mind. The sages of Savannah ate a diet of living foods to be so long-lived and intelligent. But what is a live food diet? These foods are those that come from the natural intervention of air, land, and water, in short, a vegetarian diet. If you start filling your plate with vegetables, fruits, and cereals, you will live forever. This diet is designed by nature, so it is vital and extraordinarily healthy. But, just as the sages have lived this way for ages, so have the elephants and the monkeys. The strongest animals on the planet. They wear the vegetarian badge. But the most important thing is that the sages were not extravagant people. But all his wisdom was based on the principle that one must live in moderation, and always flee from extremes. If you like meat, there is no problem that you continue eating it. But it is important to remember that you are eating dead food. If possible, reduce your intake of red meat as much as possible. Do it. As you nourish your body, so you nourish your mind. Ritual of abundant knowledge. The name gives us a general overview. What it refers to is based on learning and expanding your knowledge. By listening to a book for 30 minutes, you open your mind to knowledge you never imagined. Since today there are books for all kinds of situations. Do you want to be the best seller in the world? Someone already wrote about it. You want to be happy? You can find millions of books with that title. Do you want to understand any digital platform? There are authors who help you to understand this topic perfectly. All the impediments or questions you have, you can solve by reading and putting your knowledge into practice. Everything you learn from different books should help you improve, either personal or at work. Try to get something new every day that brings you closer to your goal. Tell me what you read and I'll tell you who you are. That's true. But I will know you better if you tell me what you reread. If you like this video, please subscribe, it's free. It costs you nothing, and it helps me a lot. If you really like this summary, give it a go. I like it. So YouTube will recommend this video to more people. Thank you for subscribing and liking it. Now let's continue. Personal reflection. Concentrate for a few minutes, and try to get to know yourself better. Create a list of the activities you do during your day and evaluate them. If you notice any negative activity, take steps to get rid of it. Remember that nobody is perfect, and there will always be something to improve. Ritual of simplicity. Leave certain activities that you feel are not suited to what you want to achieve, and focus that energy on things that add more to you. Fear is a conditioned response. Fear is a habit that can consume all your energy, creativity, and spirit. The way to beat it is by doing what you fear. Once you do what mentally stops you, you may realize that everything you thought about fear was simply in your mind. Fear is a means of defense against the dangers of life. But this fear specifically is something that you create or instilled in you. How many times do parents set an example to their children, to a person who is not doing so well in life, and they tell him if you don't study enough, he will end up like him? To destroy these fears, all you need is the strength to overcome them. Remember that once you conquer your fears, you conquer your life. I assure you that we have all felt fear at some point. The new is always scary. If you don't believe it, think, as a child entering the collegian for the first time. Or the last time you entered a new office, on your first working day. As in the examples above, most of these fears are irrational. They are nothing more than your defense mechanism, activating in the face of the unknown. Once you overcome this inner fear, and face the results, you see that there was no reason to fear them. The pink wire. Remember that the sumo wrestler wore a pink cable as clothing. This symbol points to the third principle, reminding you of the power of discipline. To achieve a fuller, enlightened, and happier life. Discipline is what holds all these teachings together. Since it is the one that gives you the necessary tools when life puts you to the test. Willpower allows you to do what you said you would do. Whether it's following these tips, taking care of yourself, exercising, or getting up in the morning to meditate. If you feel that you do not have enough discipline, work it. Any person, no matter how weak they feel, can learn to control his actions. When you come to self-mastery, you have the strength to do what you've always wanted to do. An example of this is the story of Gandhi. When you think of this great character, you usually see a person who could go weeks without eating. But if you take a closer look at it, you'll know that he wasn't always this way. When he was a lawyer in South Africa, the discipline of fasting and meditation were too foreign to him to understand. He had to work on his self-control in order to achieve his willpower. To master your mind, you have to start being able to control each and every one of your thoughts. When you reach the control phase, you become the owner of your life. Julian told John that a way to develop your willpower. It is by repeating at least 30 times a day a mantra that has existed for more than 5,000 years. I am more than what I appear, all the strength and the power of the world are inside me. Remember that words have powers, and how you use them will make your life better or worse. For example, if you fill your mind with courageous thoughts, you become courageous. If you fill your mind with good words, you become kind. Exercises to cultivate your inner discipline. 1. Do things you don't like. To stop being a slave to your impulses, you must start exercising your will every day. 2. Go a whole day without talking, just answer direct questions. What silence does is condition your will to do what you tell it to do. By curbing that need to talk, you work on your impulses. Start small, and grow little by little. This will serve as a form of motivation to reach even bigger goals. The chronograph. Most people figure out what they really want and how to get it when it's too late. This is the point of the chronograph in the fable, as it shows the most important asset you have. Time. Time is something that slips from your hands like sand and never comes back. People who use time wisely from an early age are rewarded with rich, productive lives. Keep in mind that all people have the same amount of time. From the richest person in the world, or the poorest has the same 24 hours. Then mastery of your time leads you to mastery of life. So manage it well, remember that it is a non-renewable resource. One of the several rules Julian learned from the Savannah sages is that 80% of the results you achieve in life only come from 20% of the activities that take up your time. Yogi Raman called it the old rule of 20. That's how only 20% of what you do will have an influence on your life. Those are your high-impact activities. Another important way to take advantage of this virtue is by planning your activities to live according to what you want to get out of life. Focus on your priorities, on the things that are most important to you, so you don't see the need to sacrifice them when things get complicated. But this not only applies to work issues, but also to point out the commitments you have made with yourself, such as exercising, reading, meditating, living more with your family. This way you will be more productive with your time. But in order to achieve this, you have to watch out for time thieves. Who are those people who always appear at the moments in which you are about to do your activities? For example, at that moment that you sit down with a book, that you find yourself playing with your children or your parents. Or those that usually stop by your office just when you find a few minutes for yourself. Learn to say no to the little things in life, to have the strength to say yes to the bigger things. Did you ever decide to stay in your house reading and taking courses instead of going out to that party or meeting that you knew was going to be very good? Remember a situation in which you had to choose, and in the end you stayed with the one that best suited your life plan. This is what the author refers to. You have to evaluate each situation or option that comes your way in life and decide the best one to reach your final goal. The best time to plant a tree was 40 years ago. Second best is today. Don't waste a minute of your life. So stop acting like you have 500 years to live. Take advantage of every minute you have and manage your time adopting the deathbed mentality. Because when you adopt the deathbed mentality, you live each day as if this moment were the last on earth. Think how your life would be if you will make all your decisions thinking if that is what you would like to do on your last day. Surely you would live every moment to the fullest no matter what else. Yellow roses. The beginning of the flowers will remind you of an ancient Chinese proverb that says, "The hand that gives you some roses always retains a bit of the fragrance." What this proverb means to you is that when you work to improve other people's lives, you are indirectly raising your own. When you work with acts of kindness on a constant basis, your life is usually enriched and begins to take on meaning. Take into account that the noblest thing you can do is give to others. The sages of Savannah, they called him. Throw off the shackles of self. Which leads to losing your insecurity and focusing on higher purposes. There are many things you can do. What it's like to take a sabbatical and go to a country to help people in need, or smaller aspects, like letting a person go first in line at the bank. When you strive to make this world a more habitable place, that's when life moves to a more magical dimension. So try to practice small acts of kindness every day. Trail full of little diamonds. This last element of the fable of the sages of Savannah will remind you of the final virtue of the enlightened life. In this way you will begin to see the wonders of the simplest things, and you will live your life in ecstasy. This is achieved by applying a process that yogis call living in the now. Since they knew that the moment that matters most in their lives is now. That the past is gone, and the future is just part of your imagination. So live today, because you will not have another day like this. Do not leave for later the things that are important for your well-being or for your personal satisfaction. Live fully today, without waiting until you win the lottery or retire. Life should not be postponed. One way to create the habit of living in the present is to give thanks every day for what you have, whether material or spiritual. Be grateful that you have legs to walk, that you can enjoy a beautiful sunset every day, or that you have a roof to sleep on. The most important thing is that you feel grateful. Phrases from the book. The monk who sold his Ferrari. Every event has a reason, and every adversity teaches us a lesson. Failure, be it personal, professional, or even spiritual. It is necessary for the expansion of the person. Never regret your past. Accept him as the teacher that he is. Investing in yourself is the best thing you can do. You will not only improve your life, but also those of those around you. Only when you master the art of loving yourself, you can truly love others. Only by opening your heart can you reach that of others. When you are inspired by an important goal, an extraordinary project, all your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind exceeds the limits. Your consciousness expands in all directions. And you see yourself in a new and wonderful world. Hidden strengths, faculties, and talents come to life. And you discover that you are a better person than you ever dreamed of being. When you decide to focus your mind on the goals of your life, the mind begins to discard what does not matter, to focus only on what is important. Reject weak thoughts that have been placed in the palace of your mind. They will see that they are not welcome and their only option will be to leave. Conclusion. It is a book with many teachings. It helps you improve your way of working, living, and living with society. Above all, face certain situations that life presents. Also, to define what you want to achieve in life, strengthen your spiritual side, and be positive. Since with positive thoughts you can achieve great things and overcome your greatest fears. Do not let yourself be guided by the problems that you often create for yourself. Each person has the ability to improve each day, and this book is perfect for developing this ability. If you liked this summary, please leave your comments below. I hope you liked this summary. If so, feel free to give me your opinion in the comment box below. If you like this video, please share it on social networks to make it reach the maximum number of people. Yes, you got to this part of the video. I want to thank you for your attention, and I hope this information will help you a lot. If you like the video, I recommend that you subscribe to the channel is free. It costs you nothing, and it helps me a lot to continue creating content. Turn on notifications. This will notify you when I upload new videos. And I ask you to help me with a like so YouTube will recommend this video to more people. Share this video with that person who you know needs this information. Always think big. Always remember that there are no limits. Have a great day. Wishes you think big, global entrepreneur.